3D printing. That is a topic that gets more and more popular in our everyday life. Probably everybody has already heard of it, and some people have even had the experience with it, maybe printing the one or the other part themselves. But since we guess that 3D printing will be a part of our everyday's life in the near future, people start to think about, well, what does it require to use? And it does come along with a few barriers of entry. If you look at the all technical terms and the hardware needed, some people that might not even be that interested in computer techniques this much actually fear that the entry will be quite difficult. Talking about heated beds, nozzle diameter, filaments diameter, printing sizes of the layer heights and axis wobble and whatever. There's plenty of this in this topic. 3D printing needs to get more easy in the future in order for us to use it in everyday's life without having to take, let's say, special courses to 3D printing, such as when you buy a printer you don't want to take a course for using it. This is a problem that the company M3D in the United States has had their hands on, working passionately on a solution. So what they've come up with is the Cube. It is a cube-shaped printer that promises the user a plug-and-play experience, an experience that you really do not need to work on a lot of technical terms, computer knowledge and programming knowledge. You can just use the program that comes along with the printer, plug it in the power plug, connect it to your PC and get going just in a second. So what is this printer all about? M3D, they designed this printer to be a user-friendly printer that requires little to no pre-knowledge about slicer programming, designing parts, installing and calibrating the printer. Basically saying we need to make this thing to be used as easily as the home printer that prints papers. Now, what have they come up with? They've come up with a cube-like printer that has a side length of 185 millimeters each, and which is incredibly stable and robust in the form itself. This said, we have the axis running in here, we have carbon fiber rods and high strength rubber guidings for the axis, X, Y and Z, and they work with very little ease and have an automatic calibration program. Say if the prints are off by a little, then you can just tell the program to make a quick calibration and it will just do it automatically without having to interact in any way. This printer, for the price of under $500, comes along with great specifications. We have layer heights of 0.05 millimeters up to 0.35 millimeters diverted into 4 different steps, which are these: 0.05 millimeters, 0.1 millimeters. The printer is able to print cubes that have a little bit more than 10 centimeters of edge length.
Although the printer only prints a cube that has roughly an edge length of 10 centimeters each, he is not, let's call it, the quickest. But he makes up for this big time in terms of accuracy, both in layer height and head positioning. The print head, has an inbuilt motion sensor chip that feeds back the exact location to the processes of the printers, and in case of dispositioning, recalibrates the print head to guarantee a higher accuracy throughout the print. Okay, here I have for you the setup as I am having it in my room. I have built a little wall mount for my printer from aluminum, and it is bolted into my concrete walls to reduce any vibrations coming into the printer to receive maximum precision prints for my review here to make it most reliable. You see everything is bolted nice and tightly, and on top of the printer you see the filament string coming into the print head from above. It enters the print head right before the little feeding hose that would be for the internal feeding. On top here you see my 2 rolls of filament, 1.5 kilo. They sit on metal bearings to reduce any rolling resistance, so the print head would need least energy to withdraw the filament from the spool. On the back side of the printer you see here the 2 cables entering it, the USB cable on the first hand, and on the back, you see the power plug, and it's simple as that. You would just plug the printer onto your power AC on the power plug from your wall, connect it to your computer via the USB, and install the software as I'm going to show you now, and you're all ready to go. Okay, hello, I am back here now to show you guys where I got my software from, since the delivery got with a paper slip that showed me web links on where to get the software, but since I tried it 3 times and I kept misspelling the hyperlink, I thought to myself, why not try at the homepage itself? So let's go ahead and do so. The homepage of the M3D printer is printm3d.com. And when we arrive at the homepage, it shows us right away the support button that is right here located in the middle of the web page. So we're gonna click this and then proceed to downloads. You could also download videos as tutorials, enter the knowledge base and the forums, which are quite helpful if you have any trouble with the printer in whatever way you got. So when you hit the download button, it also gives you furthermore informations and opportunities to download manuals and 3D models for testing, but we want software, so we're gonna hit the software button. Then not instruction software. I'm not using a Mac, so I'm not gonna hit the Mac, but I'm on Windows, so click whatever you need, Mac or Windows. Software latest, and then I'm gonna use the latest software that has been uploaded 20 hours ago. So you see it is still in the developing phase, the software, and you will find, when you check for it, you will find updates coming in almost daily or even hourly if there's trouble. So keep an eye open for this. It is only good for troubleshooting and will bring great results. So click on the .exe program, download and install it, and I will. Hello everybody, I am back now. I have downloaded and installed the software as I showed you before. And now this is the interface that comes up when you open the program. On the right hand side we have a quick search of all the objects that have been loaded into the software previously, to quick load those if you want to reprint them. And as well, we have a search bar up here. Then on the top right corner we have a question mark for questions and support. We have a setting wheel for any printer settings, calibration, update checkings, print bed settings, whatever you need. Then on the left hand corner we have the open model if you want to browse your folders on the computer. If you have any models saved on there, then you will load them into the software via this button. And the thing we're gonna start up with, 3D ink. Here, this is the button to load the filament either internally or externally. If you hit this, I do have one loaded right now, so it won't show you here. It's gonna ask you if it has internal feeding or if you want to use external. Using external feeding. As you saw on my setup video, my spool holder is over on top of the printer and it feeds from above into the printhead directly. If you have the M3D filament yourself, then it will fit under the print bed and be fed through the external hosing coming into the printhead that has been pre-mounted by M3D. When you load the filament, it's going to ask you for a color code for the M3D filaments. Say, for example, this would be ice. I had ice previously in here, so it's still set to white pearl. When you enter those names, it tells the system what color it is, what material it is, and the most efficient presets in terms of the temperature it works best with. You can also change the temperature later on through the setting wheel. It warns you it's only for advanced. Say if you have external or other companies filament in here and you figure that printing at 220 degrees works better than at 190, then you can set it manually to 220 degrees, but I won't. 210 works great for me, so I'm just gonna leave this set here. Then same goes for removing the filament. You just hit the button remove, then the little motors inside the printhead will start extruding the rest of the filament inside the printhead and giving free the filament that has not yet melted. So it's just the reverse process of feeding the filament. It's just an easy task, manageable for everybody, for sure. Okay, so once we got the filament loaded, I suggest you do a quick calibration, which is under the setting wheel here. Then go to calibration, second on the left hand side, and advanced calibration, and then recalibrate bed location. So just in case for transportation, something has, or via, or during the installation, something has been offset, then you can reset it here. But then you're all teased to get a print going, so you can open a model from here, or I'm gonna take one that has been loaded already. So I'm gonna take the cat, and it brings you to this neat view of the printer. It is a visualization of the model sitting inside the printer, and a nice feature that it is kind of see-through, but still gives you a great geometrical reference to where it is. So okay, now that you have the model sitting on here, you see there's this little option bar up here where you can choose the position of the model. You can either do this through the slide bars, or you can use your right hand button on the mouse and move it manually. In case you have a large object and you move it outside of the print area and it would not be clear in the very first view, then there's a great feature in the software that just marks in bright red the border that has been crossed by the object, so you actually have absolutely no risk of running a larger model than possible inside the printer, and you can just safely move it back or hit the recenter model and it brings it right back into the center of the print bed. Next option here is the dimensions. Now, one important thing about this, you see you have 3 slide bars, but if you move one by itself, then it's gonna change the properties. So right click, drag, and hold and drag basically will do symmetrical shift of the properties. If you don't want that and you just wanted to make it wider or deeper, or you want to make it taller and stretch it, then you're free to do so. Keep those numbers here as a reference since they are all changing symmetrical to the others. So if I'm gonna go to 100 or 1.62, then it's going to be geometrically correct to the Y bar. Last option here on the left is rotation and shifting. You can roll and rotate the object here freely in the room, but keep in mind everything that is a hangover, that like this, then it will need support to print, so make sure that the object you print is kind of upright and leaving the least hangovers possible, so you're not gonna need too much of the support material since that uses time and material. If you have prints that have a lot of overhangs, then be free to rotate the model so to a position that has the least overhangs hanging freely, just to save some of your filament. If you if you're ready to go and you're all set with your presets, you agree to all this, so if you're ready, you've changed the properties to the way you want it and the size and the position of the model, then you can go on this button, the print button, and it will bring you to the last pop-up before printing. It again shows you real quick what filament you've loaded, so there's no misunderstandings here. Then the print quality, as I showed you before, there's ultra low, low, medium, and high. Say 0.35 millimeters, 0.2 millimeters, something in between 0.2 and 0.1, and highest would be 0.1. Then fill density is obviously how much of the model will be completely filled. Say if you have this cat, there's a lot of space inside of the cat, and you might not want to fill it completely with the PLA, because as you can imagine, it will firstly take very long, and secondly, it will use so much of your filament that it's actually starting to get costly. I mean, it depends on the model you're printing, but if you don't need it to be extra strong, I would suggest not to use full on such prints, but you can also use high, which kind of prints a honeycomb structure in there, still making it very stable, but it will make it a lot lighter, a lot quicker, and a lot cheaper to print. The check bars you have here that are kind of hidden in the more options section are support material, obviously some structures that supports the overhangs. Then model support, say if you want to print a C, then the support material will not be printed for the upper overhangs, but if you check the model support, it will always also print support material on the model itself. But keep in mind, if you have closed rooms that you print and there's movable parts in there and you use model support, then you are not able to take away those supports later on and clean it up. So be careful with this option. Wave bonding is a method that the printhead moves up and down slightly whilst printing the first one or two layers, thus increasing the area the filament is touching the print bed, so it will increase the adhesion to the print bed, and therefore minimizing the risk of getting loose throughout the print. And the last option is the use raft. Say if you have models that have very little surface to touch the print bed, then you want to use a raft, increasing the surface and thus minimizing the risk of getting loose through the print. Once you're done, hit the print button. It will calculate the filament needed and the estimated time. The estimated time, just to tell you real quick, very small objects that are under half an hour or 35 minutes of print, when it tells you, tend to print very much quicker. For example, the cubes I have printed that were 1 centimeters of edge length, they were an estimated 35 minutes, but they only took like 12 in the very least resolution. So everything under 30 minutes is kind of inaccurate. Everything above is pretty accurate to 5 minutes. So now for the actual question: how does the printer perform in terms of the printing? I have printed the 4 test cubes you see here at the different resolutions the printer can do: the high, the very high, the high, the low, or the ultra low. They are named in the system low, medium, high, and very high, if I remember right. Anyhow, they are the 0.35 millimeters, 0.2, something between 0.2 and 0.1, and then the 0.1 resolution as the highest at the moment. On the webpage, I know, and I've said it before, they say 0.05 millimeters at the maximum layer height, but apparently, as I have measured it, it only makes 0.1, and I guess since the software is still in the testing phase and it is still getting developed and worked on every day, I believe that that will be a feature coming out in the future, and maybe at the point you watch this video already out, since updates come in daily and sometimes even hourly. At the moment it's just 0.1, so what can I say? 0.35 millimeters as the basically roughest resolution of all. Still gives great geometrical features. A cube that you print is a cube, the walls are all straight, the top layer is all straight and flat, there's no filament rests that are standing out at some edges, or there's no waves in the wall thickness and the walls in general, and the edges are clean. So I can say even 0.35 works great for accurate prints, but if you want to have really accurate print, but a quick printing time, I would suggest you go to 0.2 millimeters, which is very accurate already. It is pretty quick, so if you have larger prints but you want them to also look nice, then 0.2 millimeters would be great. Don't get irritated by the kind of wavy first three layers that you see on the right hand side on the bottom of the cubes. They are due to the wave bonding option I have turned on. Since the head moves up and down quite a bit, the first three layers kind of compensate for the wave shape on the first layer, so that's why they get distorted. But this has no influence, at least in my cases, on the rest of the print. Then for the next, which is the high resolution already, the step before the highest, it is something in between 0.1 and 0.2 millimeters. It works fairly accurate, but if I was to have to print very accurate prints, I would go for ultra high resolution, the 0.1, which is as fine that you won't even see the layers. If you only hold it in your hand, you would have to get close to it. So this is really some great resolution. I'm very excited for the 0.05 resolution, since it has been promoted on the webpage, so I guess and I would suggest them to hold up to their promise, and I'm awaiting this. The edges, as I already said, of the cubes everything is nice and straight, geometrically correct. What I found that the printer also had a strength in was wavy and curves in the forms. For example, on this test print, you see there's this wavy part, and it actually turned out really well. The walls were all nice and solid, no edges, no holes in it. So props to the difficult shapes. But excuse me for the cut I made here, but I had to re-edit the video just today because I have installed another of the software updates, and I was going to complain at this point about overhang quality, especially everything over 35 degrees and complete horizontal overhangs. But after I have now installed the software update, the overhangs turn out very well, I believe, for this quality compared to what I had before. So I felt I need to inform you about that this is a thing and a problem of the past. So just to go into detail real quick here, I printed a test print that goes to 45 degrees of bricks, and even the lower parts of those bricks turned out quite well. And I had made 1 centimeter complete horizontal 180 degree laying flat overhangs, little structure like a bridge, and they actually turned out very well. They were all nice and straight, and the down parts of the bridge basically had little to no filament pearls, so I am very happy with those results. Yet I must say that results from, for example, a CDC printer that ranges up about 1.5 times the price of this one, the results of overhangs and a clean print in terms of little filament strings that are being extruded when the head moves from one print point to the other are a lot cleaner, as to be seen in this picture. I feel that in the very high resolution, if we have 2 points that the printer is printing at, say for example 2 towers, then when it moves from one tower to the other tower on one layer, it keeps on dragging little bits and pieces from not retracted filament, so you have a lot of kind of hairy structures in between the object, which kind of demand a bit of after cleaning. I mean, there's always after cleaning necessary, but I feel that in the high resolution at the moment it's quite a bit, and sometimes if you have models that you can not really reach into, then it does get really annoying at times. But if you know this and you print at medium resolution, the problem gets a lot better, and you have quite good results with this. In the future, as I said, I believe this would be a thing of the past. They will work on it because there's been in the forum already complaints about it. So yeah, let's just stay optimistic for the future, what the software developers.
Okay, so here we are now at my workplace where I have my printer set up on the wall mount, and right now I'm just gonna give the printer a little job printing a little cube at high resolution, just to give you guys an impression on the noisiness of the printer, or the not noisiness, since it's very quiet, the speed of it printing, and just getting a little bit insight on the way it works. Whilst this, I will give my final resume on the pro and cons of this printer and how I've experienced the weeks of it printing. And yeah, I'll just get going real quick. I'll just give the printer its job to do. So we're gonna select high quality and low infill with no raft, wave bonding, and no support material. It estimates 49 minutes, which I do not believe to be true, since everything below 50 minutes is kind of inaccurate. Very small objects tends to print a lot quicker than it is displayed. I've had objects that it displayed as 35 minutes print time, but it was done after 8, so we'll see how long this takes. Alright, there it goes. It will first maybe calibrate itself again, as it does mostly before every print, but we have time enough for it to do so. Now I'm gonna start up with the negative points about my experience with this printer, because I want to finish off with the positive ones, because the after all and overall experience with it was more than positive, and I've been surprised by it many times, and I do not want to finish this video with the negative aspects. So for me, most annoyingly was the speed of the printer. I don't think that will be a problem for every user, but for myself, since sometimes I'm kind of in a hurry and I need to get things done quickly, the printer was a little bit too slow for me. This is a cookie cutter I print previously, and you see it's not that big. It was printed on not the highest resolution, but the one before. And this thing took some 6 hours, let me lie, I think it's 6 hours, 6.5 hours it took to print, and this I think is the aspect that confrontates the ease of use and the readiness for the household use the most, because when you have things to be done quickly, such as saying, hey, in 3 hours we want to do some cookies, and this is the motive we want to print this with, you won't say in 6 hours we're gonna print. So I would wish for the software, maybe that will be in the development in the near future, that you can set manually the print speed of the printer to maybe lower the expectations on the details, but higher the ones on speed, so you just get things that don't need to be that accurate done real quick. Now for the next generation printer, what I would wish for would be two things. First up would be a power off and on switch on the side, because when you have this thing plugged in the power plug, it will always stay on. Even if you turn off the PC or the laptop or whatever you have it hooked up with, if you shut it off, then the printer will stay on, the emblem will stay lit, and so I guess the entire system has sitting energy and also consuming a little bit of energy. I would wish for a plug, and the second thing I would wish for in the next generation printer is the ability to print by itself. Right now I do have the laptop or the PC or whatever you have hooked up to turned on all the time while it prints. So if in the future I do print very large prints, my computer, which consumes quite a bit of energy, will remain on, and therefore higher the costs of the print. Maybe in the next generation printer the software and the hardware parts will be modded to the point of it printing independently, so I can turn off my computer overnight, but the printer will keep on going, maybe with a little bit of flash space on there, but I don't know, maybe the hardware development in the near future will get up with it. Coming to the software, I kind of had my issues with the object view. When I rotate the object, I can only rotate around it. I want to see it from on top. At times for dimensions, if I set up the dimensions of the print, I want to be able to see it from top. The software doesn't let you do that. It only lets you rotate around, and this said, I guess it is only a minor issue. It didn't bug me a lot, but it bugged me a little bit, and maybe in the near future software developers in the M3D company will come up with the solution, because it has already been said in the forum quite a few times, and I guess the producers will have their hands on it quite soon since they're still working on the software. Now I'm gonna end my complaining. It is time for the pro arguments, the things I loved about the printer and I liked. First thing is that they have kept up to the promise of the ease of use and the plug and play experience. It is a great thanks to the company. They've really worked great times on that. As I already said, unwrapped the printer, I plugged it in, I installed the software, I hit it print first time, and it just worked out of the box. It did a little calibration, took some 5 minutes, but it did it all by itself. I was up to get some coffee whilst that, and the printer just got off, got the print done, and worked up from the table just as it is. Second thing, as you can already hear, it's very quiet. It works great along when you have to work on your papers, do your work on the computer or whatever, and you need to focus. It really doesn't disturb you in any parts. Also said, if you have this sitting in your living room maybe, or your dining room, or even the kitchen if you want to print some more cookie cutters, wherever you have it set, it is quiet. It doesn't annoy in the everyday life. If you have a large print, it's not some of the printers that are even way up the price range that are so noisy that they are really annoying. And then next thing is the energy consumption of the printer itself. As I said in the negatives, you also have to calculate the energy consumption of the computer or the PC or the laptop, whatever you have it connected with. But the printer itself is very, very small in energy usage, so that is very great. Next thing, as I already said, is the energy consumption. It's so little, you really don't need to spend a thought on it. And I'm just gonna finish that. The accuracy for this price range is stunning. The 0.05mm layers are so accurate. There's so little tolerance to it that I feel this printer does compete with the printer way up the price range, coming at over 1,000 euros or dollars. The carbon fiber rods and the way it is set up, they guarantee a very stable motion of the head, and they do a very well job at this. Which leads me to my next point, which is the frame and the design, especially design. The design of it is so simple but so geniusly thought through that I need to say great props to the producers of it. Since it's a cube, it has a very stable axis, and it is also protected from outer interference. So if you have, say, little kids playing around, the sensitive hardware of it is protected by the case. It does have no windows, which you could maybe add on if you want to, but still all the technical parts and the rods are in the corners of it, so you really have basically already a hard time to touch these, and by accident it is very well protected. Same goes for the general design of it. The looks, I think, is very easy, very basic. It really doesn't interfere with the design of your room if you have it set in the living room. It is a nail biter's argument, but I think there's uglier printers out there. It does a great job at that. Last two arguments and then to my finishing sentence. The build plate, where it's already printing on right now, great props to the company as well for the build plate. Many printers do have a problem with stickiness. If you have larger prints, they tend to, or smaller prints also, they tend to disconnect from the build plate and start moving around while printing. And imagine you have a 15-hour print, you spend a lot of energy on it, if you have a high energy consumption computer, not the printer, you spend a lot of filament on it for sure. Then you don't want the print to start moving at hour 14 or 15 when you're asleep in bed and you can't do anything about it. So people do spray haarspray in it. They have tapes that tape on it. They have all different kinds of methods to make it more sticky for the print. I didn't need any of those yet. I do, if I have very small print, I either print a little build plate on it, or I print with wave bonding, which I have turned on right now. For the first layers, the printhead moves up and down in waves and therefore increases the area that is on the build plate. But yet, even with this little cube here, I have not had a single issue with any print coming out of the print bed and start moving around. So after all, the print's almost done here. I can say for this price the printer comes at, now it's done. So you see, now the print is done. It retracts the filament from the print head so we don't have it coming out of the nozzle when moving away and smearing all over our object. It said it took 49 minutes, right now it took 13, so as I said, under 50 minutes of print time. The calculation of the print time is fairly inaccurate. Above 50 minutes it is pretty accurate, as I found. So yeah, everything that is very small you kind of need to keep an eye on it and then calculate for yourself what you think it would take. So this is on high resolution, little cube, a little bit under 1 centimeters of edge length. Took 13 minutes, can't complain. Accuracy is great. I'll put a picture here after what I'm gonna say next. As we've heard now the pro and con arguments, I'm gonna finish up with the sentence about the experience. And what I can say after 2 weeks of usage, testing, comparing to other printers, I can say that for this price the printer comes at, it is great value. It is really great value in terms of the accuracy, as I said, the ease of use, and just the overall usage and design. I came along with many different prints, very complex prints such as this oil drill, and easier prints such as the cookie cutter here. It mastered all of them well. The accuracy was great. I had no wobbling. I did sometimes had axis offsets, but I could diminish those when the support helped me out a bit. So for everybody that tries to get into 3D printing themselves for the private usage and doesn't want to bother a lot about the software, the hardware parts and calibration, I would definitely tell you to check out the M3D, have an eye on it, maybe read through some tests on the internet as well. But if you don't want to spend a lot of money and get a good printer, try this out. Buildspace